7 grams.
Kept it pretty short.
It's okay level to use, isn't it?
So I'm just going to go over some label changes, fertilizer changes that some of them I've heard kind of last year, but may not be real familiar with you guys.
Laura, we might pass around the pesticide sheets too, so get that out there. We do have pesticide credits for Washington too. So if any of you are Washington, we got that.
Can you guys hear me okay, or do you need me to use my phone? So a couple of the ones, some of you guys may or may not have used Matrix. There's definitely some new wording on that label. I have seen the damage that it has caused, so I would adhere to this wording on the label. It is there for a reason. And it basically says, do not spray unless it is prior to Fumigation emergent, or those Fumigations are at least 3 foot tall. If you do spray right over the top of the Fumigations, I can just about guarantee you will see damage. It will not only stunt them, it does get uptaked into the plant, and I have seen on weaker plants it actually kill them. So this is something I would look at very closely when you're doing it. And then do not apply to small or weak plants or plants grown in wet or saturated soil. This product is really good at what it does, but it's hard on the plants in those conditions. Arrow, one we've been kind of looking at for the last few years, is labeled on bearing and non-bearing. It is double the strength of the Select Max that we have been using, so just keep that in mind when making your applications. But nothing too new there. We have seen that label, I think, last year already. Alpha-Core, maybe one that isn't thought of much. We use a lot of diazinon and malathion for crown borer drenches. We need to start looking at additional chemistries. Those products are definitely not going to be around forever, so it would be nice to get comfortable with another one. Been using it for a couple of years and seeing pretty good results with it. It is a product that is systemic upwards in a plant, so it will actually get uptaken. And it also is really good on lepidopteris, so your fruit worms as well. So it's a definite fit for us, and it's a different group. So we'll get some good control and get good rotation in our IPM program, something that we all probably need. Calciron, the liquid formulation is back. For how long, I don't know, but for now it is back if you would like to use it. There is product available out in the marketplace. And then the Quinstar, which is the one I think we're all kind of waiting for, the quinclorac chemistry, not here yet, but it is close. We got it, I think, another year or so. IR4 is still working on it, and we should see it. And it will give us some definite help in the morning glory, bindweed, and even suppression of Canadian thistle. So it's not here yet, so don't go running out and buying it and applying it, but just to keep you kind of updated on that product. Any questions on chemistries or anything before we move to fertilizers?
I just got one, I don't know if you've heard on it yet or not, but Exorel, the new one that's supposed to come through for SWD.
Yeah, and I saw some research on it yesterday, but I haven't seen anything come through from the manufacturers on it. So the data on it.
EPA just established the tolerance, so hopefully it'll happen.
So usually once the EPA establishes the tolerance, you still could be looking at anywhere from 6 months to a year. Unfortunately, at the state level, it usually takes a little longer, and each state has to pick it up and register it. And we hate to admit it, but Oregon is actually one of the slower ones at it. So we might be able to potentially get through like a Section 18 or 24C maybe on something like that if the tolerances are already there. So might be a different route for us to take, but unfortunately it just takes a little longer to get through. But the data that Peter Scheer was showing yesterday at the tree fruit meeting showed really good efficacy on SWD, both on the leaf surface and on the fruit surface that he was testing. So it should be a real interesting one. So fertilizers. Going into winter, nitrogen was stable as could be. Everybody thought it was going to go down. Even the wholesalers were telling us this, and it shot up at the beginning of the year. So there was two things in play with that. We had the world market demand and the U.S. market demand. The U.S. market demand was down, world market demand was up, and guess which one won? So unfortunately, world market drives nitrogen right now, and prices have gone up. I think the majority of your suppliers probably stocked up prior to this, so you won't see the effect of what nitrogen will cost now for us to buy. You're not gonna see that price until later in the year, and hopefully by then the prices will come back down. It's kind of where the market's going. We'll kind of see how it plays out, but it should hopefully work in our favor. But through the spring, I think you guys will not see very many changes. Most suppliers were kind of buying up because the market was low, and so hopefully that'll play out for you guys in your favor. Phosphorus and potash, both of those are pretty stable. We're not seeing many changes up or down, which isn't necessarily a bad thing and not always a good thing, but as far as they should be down a little bit from last spring, because in the fall they were a little lower, and they seem to be kind of holding there. So the demand isn't as driven right now, but it could potentially be. The world market in general has been pulling more and more of our major nutrients out, so it's something to kind of watch. I did put micronutrients up here. Most of those are stable. We have seen copper and zinc kind of getting more expensive, so unfortunately, if you do need those are ones to kind of watch, but overall, they've been fairly stable for the last year. It's just they're pretty high priced, both of them. I did look a little bit at organic fertilizers. Not sure how many of you guys would be interested in that. Blood meal right now, I think even to purchase is over $2,000 a ton. That's 13% nitrogen, that's it. So organic has gotten really expensive due to a higher demand and a shortage of supply. So if you are in the organic, you might want to consider looking at maybe alternatives, or really, thinking about how you want to do this, and using mulches or something else might be advisable. There are some newer ones on the market. I'm not sure how many of you guys have looked at them, but they are a plant protein derivative for the nitrogen source. What we're seeing overall is that they tend to start to release a little faster and last longer than a lot of them. So it's an option to look at and definitely play with on your farm. The cost on them is definitely a little less than your blood meal, but your nitrogen percentages aren't as high as blood meal. Overall, you're still going to pay that price, but if they can feed the plant more with what the plant wants, it might be a really good option to look at. So, not a whole lot has changed on organic chemicals. We haven't seen anything new that's going to work on our SWD or that. We did play with Grandivo, and some of you guys had been looking at that. Not impressed with what it does on SWD, so not something I would advise. We played a little bit with oxidate. I know the reps were kind of promoting that as SWD control. Peter Shear had shown that he could spray it right over the top of them, and he didn't see anything. I did have some growers use it, and they thought it worked, but not something that I would say is going to be an end-all, cure-all by any means. So something that works probably better as disease control than trying to use it for insecticides. So, questions? Thoughts?
Organically, have you heard mumblings of a pre-emergent or possibly a burn down that might be available in the coming years?
There are some. Yeah, I'm kidding. There are several burn down herbicides. I wouldn't. The pre-emergent you'll see will be a plant type pre-emergent. Mustard seed meal has been one they've been playing with, especially from the white mustard seed. And we know that the extracts from that can act as a pre-emergent and an inhibitor. It's not something I've seen actually come out yet as fully developed, but it's definitely in the works. As far as burn downs, your main ones are still kind of there. There is, of course, Weed Zap and your Green Match and your Avenger 2. And then they also have one called Axe. I'm not sure if you've heard of that one or not. They're all fairly expensive. Not all of them have a label where we can use them in crop, and of course none of them are going to be selective. So it's a matter of trying to make them work. We haven't seen anything new from the manufacturers as far as those go.
Let's hold off on questions until after Linda, and then we can both just stay up there if you want. That's where you want to be, right?
Yeah.
And this is Linda White, she's with ODA, and another perspective.
Good morning. I am going to talk about, since I am with the ODA Pesticides Program, I'm going to talk about label and update changes at both the federal and the state level. And it's going to be a bit of a bouncer now for a little bit until we get to the real meat of things. So first off, I just wanted to talk a little bit about soil fumigation. Mostly because I get a lot of calls from private growers about how to deal with some of the changes that are now a year or two old on soil fumigations as private applicators. So for commercial applicators, there is a category exam that they can take in order to do sort of cover the label changes, the requirements on the new labels that EPA instituted a few years ago. Private applicators don't have that option. Their option in order to do the required training every 36 months is to do it online through an Achieva training, and it needs to be done every 36 months. Oh, am I now?
It's a little soft in the back.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. My voice has been acting up a little bit this week. Anyway, soil fumigation trainings are online for private applicators. That is your option. It is through the EPA.gov, the soil fumigation toolbox, and it's an Achieva training. They are a set of modules that each module takes 45 to 60 minutes, and there is an exam at the end of each module. In order to complete the training, you have to do all the required modules, and then you have to complete the modules that equate to the products that you are going to be using. And you get a certificate that allows you to purchase and use the products. So I just wanted to let you know, if you're a private applicator, that's going to be your option for soil fumigation. An update on metaldehyde. I know this is one of everybody's favorite products since it's so widely used in Oregon. It's an old product. It actually was registered in the U.S. before EPA became an agency, and because of that, it didn't have a lot of tolerances set. So when it came up for re-registration a few years ago, EPA said there were no tolerances on new crops, and so either get us the tolerances or we're going to require that you take those crops off of the labels. So because it takes quite a bit of time to do residue tolerance studies, in the last year or two we have lost crops on the metaldehyde labels. And the ones, obviously, that were of concern for this group was the lack of tolerance in the caneberries and all the berry crops. Now, that IR4 and tolerance work has been completed, and tolerances have been set on metaldehyde, but you may see old labels, mid labels, and new labels. So you really have to read your labels closely to determine if your crop is going to be on there. So if you have an old label, it will have caneberries. If you have a label from earlier, sometime this last year, you may not have caneberries on it, and then the very newer labels, you will see caneberries again. So since the label is the law, if your crop is not on there, you cannot legally use that product on it. So just make sure that you read your label correctly on the metaldehyde labels. And yes, and some of those, some of the newer labels in metaldehyde are in rather short supply, so it could be that you've got the older ones that don't have caneberries on it. So just be aware of that. I just wanted to remind everybody in here, since you are caneberry growers, of our current special local needs labels in the state of Oregon for the different crops. So in blackberries, there are special local needs labels for
Gull and dual magnum for herbicidal use, and then malathion for spotted wing Drosophila, labels of Gowan and Loveland. And then for blackberry rust, which who knows whether it's going to be an issue this year or not, we still do have a current section 24C label for Raleigh. For raspberries, we have the same two herbicides for controls. We also have cryolite bait to control root weevils. And for non-bearing raspberries, we have Chateau. Okay, now this is kind of the meat of the presentation. I need to talk a little bit about pollinator protection. And I'm going on the assumption that everybody in here knows about the major bee deaths that we had in Oregon, in Wilsonville. Is there anybody that hadn't heard about those? Okay. I'm not going to go into the specifics of that case, but what I'm going to talk about is what happened because of those cases at both the state and federal level, and this is going to impact you. So the cases regarding the bee deaths have been investigated by the ODEA, and they are now closed cases. And we ended up having cases that involved the use of the insecticide Safari, which is a dinotefuran product, on 2 cases, one in Hillsborough and one in Wilsonville, and they were both to linden trees. And then fairly soon after that, we had 2 cases in the Portland metro area, also applications to linden trees, but for a different active ingredient, imidacloprid. Both imidacloprid and dinotefuran are neonicotinoid products, and so there was a lot of concern about these. All of those cases have been resolved. 3 of the 4 cases there was an enforcement action upon, so there were issues with the applications. One of the cases there was not an issue. But because neonicotinoid products are of such concern in many cases, the bee deaths in Oregon were monitored very closely, state, national, and international levels. And unfortunately, that means that the EPA was monitoring very closely too. So at the time of the investigations, we at the ODA did institute a temporary use restriction on dinotefuran only. That temporary rule was in effect for 180 days, and it ended December 24th of 2013. So the temporary rule has now gone away. That gave us time to decide what we were going to do on the case, and one of the things that ended up coming up is that in Oregon, we determined that on imidacloprid products and dinotefuran products, we would institute specific label language on the federally registered labels to read, "Do not apply this product by any application method to lindens, basswood, or Tilia species trees." Now, that has to be on all imidacloprid and dinotefuran products that are registered in the state of Oregon. And EPA was fine with that. Now, I know you're thinking, well, I'm not making applications to Tilia, linden, or basswood trees, but this does go beyond this. And I'm going to get to that just now. EPA, and this is where it comes in to you, expanded on that a little bit by looking at 4 neonicotinoid products: dinotefuran, imidacloprid, clethianidin, and thiamethoxam. And they are instituting label changes specifically for pollinator protection on these 4 products. Imidacloprid is the most widely used insecticide in, I think, the world, and everybody pretty much uses it. What you're going to see on these labels, and this is for both ag use and non-crop use and landscape use, you are going to see label changes on all of these products. You will start seeing, and these label changes have to be instituted by the end of February of this year. You will start seeing a bee icon as a warning to let you know that there are specific label language relating to protecting pollinators. You will start seeing more restrictions on the uses. And you will see, this is a non-ag product, but there are definitely labels out there that are now being approved that you can't use the products while bees are foraging. You usually cannot use the products while the plants are blooming. You have to wait until petals fall. And then if you are on an ag label, there are even more potential restrictions, and they talk specifically about whether you have contracted pollination service or not. And there are specific label languages talking about that. So if you have crops that contract your pollination services, then you, as I mentioned, you can't use them while the bees are foraging these products. You have to wait until petals have fallen, and you have to contact the beekeeper no less than 48 hours prior to applications. If you do not use contracted service, but you have a crop that is attractive to bees, then they also talk about the restrictions on those as well, and about the timing of making applications, temperatures, and there are more expanded precautions that are specified on the labels. So just so you know, currently, to the best of my knowledge, and I could be missing a few, Bravado and the Admire products are imidacloprid. They're used for Lygus bug, and then Octara for root weevil. So these products are out there. You actively use them, so be aware that these label changes are coming. They are actually here. And just in case that is not enough of an issue, I just wanted to make you aware of what's going on in the Capitol. Oh, thank you. Obviously, you can ignore the bedbugs part, but there is the session in the state capitol begins this next Monday, and there is legislation going forward to make those for neonicotinoid products, the imidacloprid, denatefron, clethianidin, and thiamethoxam, restricted use pesticides in the state of Oregon. And obviously, if that legislation passes, everybody would need to have a license in order to purchase and use those products. We do not know where this is going to go, but we do know that it is coming up. If you are interested in that or any other legislation, you can find out what's happening with bills and where they're at by going to the state legislation website and going to OHS. And you can put in a bill number, or you can put in a topic, and it will come up with what's going on currently. So, thank you.
Let's have a round of applause. Questions? I can, I mean, the whole pollinator thing, I mean, look, it's kind of like a knee-jerk reaction. I don't know if a lot of that is very science-based. Or maybe you don't want to go there.
Well, the EPA level ones came from the EPA, so they came out down from the federal level. I was not part of those discussions, so I am not aware of how much they looked at the science or not. As far as the ones in the state of Oregon relating to Atilia species trees, yes, some of that was not necessarily based on science. It was based on the fact that all of the problems that were encountered were on Atilia species trees, and there was some research that there were issues with pollinators and those trees anyway, and so since it was one species, they determined that that would be how to resolve that issue. And so the products that have that new label language for Atilia, some of the registrants are choosing to drop the in Oregon and just not allowing the products to be used on Atilias at all. So I'm sorry, that
Yeah,
didn't
and I
answer your
didn't mean to
question.
put you on the spot.
No.
Clearly, I know this is a your decision, but, and also seeing legislative bills come down like this, that's not coming through EPA or ODOT or anything else. I mean, they're legislating basically.
That's definitely
To
more.
their audience.
Yes, the legislation that is supposed to be put forward this year in the, at the state level, is being put forward by Representative Reardon out of Portland. And it has not been read yet because we haven't started yet. I know that there have been numerous drafts made of that. We at the ODA had to remain fairly neutral on a lot of these topics. And so we don't know where that's going to go, but I did want to make everybody aware of that because it could impact you quite heavily.
I don't know, are there any questions? I don't want to dominate things if you got. I would say that, you know, I think everyone here who's a farmer has the pollinators very much involved.
Yes.
And the last thing we want to do is be made the bad guys that are pulling off all the pollinators. But I think it's a situation where we could use some political involvement from agriculture to balance off. I don't have anything else, guys. Is there anything else? Any other questions for our last panel?
And does he know if whether or not we're still trying to make changes on a federal level?
So the question was, is Blue and I are still trying to make changes to these products as RUPs at the federal level? And it's my understanding that no, he is not, which is why, or whether he is or not, that it's not going forward at the federal level, which is why then it came down to the state level. Because that's often, I guess, what happens.
All right. Thank you.